What am I doing with copper pipe fittings, brass tubing, and brass sheeting? Have to stay tuned and find out what I'm doing next.
He runs diesel engines so they don't go choo-choo. UP trains are yellow and DMEs are blue. Dustin's and Skull Railroad, where the railroad comes to you.
Alright guys, so what we're working on today is I have been working on the brewery project, and I've got the pavement done, gonna get ready to paint that, gonna light the interior of the brewery, but I have a few windows in the main room of the brewery that you can see inside. The little windows in the smaller parts, not as easy to see inside, but if you're gonna look through the big windows in there, you might see some stuff. So what I'm trying to do is make some brewery vats, some copper. So what I've got here are some 3/4 inch end caps that I've got, and some 1/2 inch tubing, some just regular connector tubing that I've got to pull the UPC codes off first, but got those. I'm going to work with them, and I'm going to make some brewery vats. Now, I was trying to think of ways to seal up the ends of these vats, and I decided that I'm going to cut down a few pieces of brass, and then I'm going to solder that in as well. And I've got this 5/32 inch round brass tubing. I'm going to use that for the piping. I've also got some just under 1/8 inch 2.06 millimeter 0.81 brass rod, 0.081 brass rod 3-pack. I might use those for the drop down pipes yet. I'm not exactly sure, but I've got them just in case. So that's what we're going to be working on here in the hobby room today, is making up some brewery vats. So I've got all the UPC codes now off the tubing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to mark out a small square. Well, I just got to find my pen here that I want to use. I'll just use this marker. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm going to try as best I can. Ooh, that's way too thick. Let's go with a pen. See if we can mark it with a pen. It's going to be tough to see, but it's all right. We'll flip it over. That's why we have two sides, right? So a quick update for you guys here. The soldering will not work on the copper. Some of you may know this already. Well, it should work. The problem is I don't have a torch to get it hot enough to melt the solder and get it to stick. It's cooling too fast. Now I could leave the soldering iron sit there all day, but it's going to get really hot. I'm going to try that again, but what I have found is working is super glue. So I super glue these little brass lids down to cut around the edges so I can make lids for these copper vats. And that seems to be working. So we're going to stick with that option right now. So what I'm doing now is I took this rotary cutter and I took it to this rod piece I've got here. And what I did was I cut around about a 1/2 inch off because I need 5/16 of an inch just to get up to the top of the tall brewery tanks. So what I'm going to do then is I'm doing a 1/2 inch, which we know is 8/16. So then I'll put 3/16 inch pipes on top of the tall brewery tanks, and then I can run a pipe all the way across. And if nothing else, if it doesn't work, then I'll just make these all 1/2 inch, and I'll keep the short ones together and the tall ones together. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm cutting them and sanding them, and then I'm going to center them up like so, and maybe just a drop of super glue to get them to stay like that, and go ahead and just pop it down like so. And I'll hold it there for just a minute to get it stick. So there we go. That's how we're doing these little pipes going into the brewery tanks. So I'm going to work on that, and we'll come back. Okay, so a little bit of an update. You can see them in two stages now. These have all gotten their tops glued on. Even though I measured everything correctly, it still came out different. So I had to try to find some that closely matched each other to try to make this piping work as best I could. And as you can see over here, I've laid the pipe and bent it into shape so it'll hold these tanks up in the back of the brewery. So I've got part of it done, part of it yet to go, and when we come back, hopefully we'll have this all done. It's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of bending. That's why I haven't shown you even a sped up version of it, just because of the fact it is taking so long to get it done. All right, we'll be back in just a moment, hopefully with a finale. So there you have it, guys. I made myself some brewery vats. I am going to take them out and paint them with a Tester's spray enamel copper. It's kind of hard to see without the light. There we go. A copper color. Now I know they're already copper, but you got copper and brass. That's two different shades of the golden coppery color. So, or brass and copper color. There you go. Duh. Anyway, two different shades of color there. I'm going to just hit it with a copper and seal everything up. Make sure there's no glue not covered, and get everything one uniform color. But I hope you learned something. I'm sorry I didn't show every single step in here, because it took me about an hour and I don't know how many questionings of what I was actually doing and why I was doing it. But there, I got them glued. It took an hour of bending. Like I said, it doesn't look the greatest. There's some kinks in the bending, but they're going to be inside the brewery over on the layout, so you're not going to be able to see them. You're probably going to just barely see them anyway through the windows when it's lit up. It's just that if you can see in there, I want everybody to see that there's some brewery vats in there. So there you go. That's what I've been working on, and that's what I was using pipe fittings and copper and brass piping for. So hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and hope maybe you learned something not to do or maybe not to fuss with. Have a good night, everybody.